Hello and welcome to Kachu Travels, my vlog on the Australia trip. I'm Karthik, your host, and I'm going to talk about how my day 0 and day 1 panned out in this trip. I started from Bangalore and I flew Qantas Airways. I prefer it because it had a direct connect and it's one of the very few airlines, apart from Air India, that has a direct flight all the way to Australia. So I had an 11-hour flight from Bangalore to Sydney, QF68, and while I chose that, I always felt that this was a better option because it gives you at least a 7-8 hour window to sleep, as opposed to Singapore Airlines, where the food menu, the drinks menu, everything is very good. But they have these short layovers where you have a 5-hour flight and a 7-hour flight after that, due to which your sleep cycle could get affected. As a result, I chose Qantas. Now on the flight yesterday, as soon as the flight took off, it had an amazing sunset and it didn't look like Bangalore, because as much as Bangalore has these days where you have beautiful orange and pink skies, yesterday looked like an exception because it was the first time I was probably watching a sunset from the sky, and it was this fiery ball of orange. And as I moved, I was moving from Bangalore into Tamil Nadu and then transitioning into Sri Lanka. And as I was doing that, I realized that there were places where there are these mountain-like clouds. Of course, you can't name a cloud, but it felt nice seeing these clouds float in the distance and say that, hey man, looks like I've seen them. And we passed that. They started serving dinner around the time that I was entering Sri Lanka on the top, which is through Vedaranyam and then through Yarpanam, Jaffna. Especially when we were above Kandy, that's when I was having my dinner. The dinner came about little unannounced. I had started to sleep then on the flight, and fairly basic. I enjoyed it. It was tasty. 8 out of 10 on the dinner. Had paneer as well as basmati rice and a little bit of dal with bun and cashews. Filling enough for the night, and then slept well for about 6 hours, and somebody didn't come on my seat right next to me. So Qantas has this 2-4-2 configuration, so I was on the right end of the 2. So I had no problem. I was able to crouch and sleep on that seat. I know some of my friends on the WhatsApp group of our long rope army had mentioned that, hey Karthik, it would be fun if like this Tamil movie called Unnale Unnale, where again the hero by the name Karthik goes to Australia. He has Kajal's sister or Tanisha sitting on the flight and they have a nice conversation. They said this something similar should happen on the flight with you, but none of that. I was actually praying that I should have an empty seat, simply because it becomes easy to get out if I have to go to the washroom or if I have to go take something from my luggage. I hate this asking permission from somebody saying, can you get up? It's a mental strain, but luckily none of that was there. Good 6-7 hours sleep, and after that I woke up only around the time where I think the flight had just maybe touched the Australian border from the northwest. And it's fascinating seeing Australia from the top because it's such large swaths of land, right? And no vegetation, no human population staying there. There was this place, I think somewhere near, I forget the name, a little above Adelaide, where you had this white color, gooey mix, seen from the top on the brown color soil. I don't know if it was a lake, but that's something I was very curious about. I did not know what it was. That's the only observation that I remember. But around the time we crossed Adelaide from the north, that's when breakfast was served, and boy, I loved the breakfast spread. Fruits, then they had this very strange name for vada, they called it fritters, and some other Anglican name, but yeah, for me it was pongal vada in the morning, and it was so nice having something tasty and comestible. And breakfast was very good, and breakfast was given about, I think, an hour and 45 minutes was remaining for flight to land. That's when they served breakfast. Landed in landed in Sydney in the morning, and my first visions of Sydney as the flight descended, I saw that the city had so much of open spaces for sporting fields. some were rugby sporting fields, some were football fields, some were cricket fields. In a major city, to have so much space for greenery and for sporting fields is a great thing. And of course, I've always known Australia as a sporting nation, which has multiple sports. So it was very nice to see that, flying from the top. And those were my first visions of Sydney in terms of what I noted. Then I came inside the airport. I was a little scared because one of my friends, Rahul, had told me about the checklist of things you need to do, because they have a biosecurity department, no dirt allowed and stuff. None of that for me. They asked me to go to a separate line. No worries on any of that. Got through from the international terminal to the domestic terminal, where I had to take my luggage out and recheck in, and all that was done in 10 minutes. Very, very fluid. In between, I managed to also get a SIM card for myself, which gives me about 25 GB of data, 400 minutes of local talk time, not India talk time though, and that kind of will hopefully be useful for speaking with some of the friends that I have here, and also local businesses in case I need some clarification. So took that SIM. This was of Telstra. I hear that their network is good in rural areas. Couple of rural areas that I plan on the Melbourne leg as well as my Sydney leg. So I thought, okay, I'll take Telstra. And after that, I proceeded to the domestic terminal. So basically, Qantas arranges the transfers. So from the international terminal, they have this bus that they transport along the airport tarmac to their own domestic terminal. It's a domestic terminal run only by Qantas, having only Qantas flights. Huge terminal. And waited there for about 3 hours. And in those 3 hours, I think went to a donut store, bought 3-4 donuts for my brunch. And a lot of Christmas festivities in the air. There was this nice booth where children were playing. They had to get some game. It reminded me of Crystal Maze back in the days in the early 90s, where you use these controls to get an item or pick an item up. I couldn't play that game. If Nandu was around, sure, I would have played it for him, but I'm sure he would have played better and won more. But Nandu is not on this trip. It's a solo trip that I'm doing with some of my friends. And while I did that, while I observed all of that, I also noticed that the stewards were wearing the Christmas cap, and they were, I think the team of people who were the airline staff, they were also singing Christmas carols as they were walking around. So a lot of Christmas friendly, festive mood within the Qantas airport. For all that, I felt that they weren't that great when it came to the app experience, or even letting me know what the food items were. The tab experience, in fact, in Qantas on the international leg was so bad. Whenever I tried clicking something, it would never work. It had this resistive touch kind of a screen on the international leg. The domestic leg, of course, did not have any tab for you to play around with. But the good part on the domestic leg, after seeing all this Christmas festivities, as soon as I got in, was that the domestic leg had Wi-Fi on the plane. And that was very nice, where you're giving live updates to friends in terms of where you are. So that was great. And that domestic leg flight was about a little over an hour and a half from Sydney to Melbourne. And reached on time. Reached at about 4:30, 4:40 to the Melbourne airport. And this is very far away from the city. That's what I observed. And the Melbourne airport is maybe 20 kilometers or so from the city. And I ended up taking a $23 bus. It's called the Skybus. It's also, I bought a return ticket for $40 so I could use it on the way back. So take the Skybus, it takes 15-20 minutes and it'll drop you off at Southern Cross. So as I came into Southern Cross, I realized that that's exactly the place where the Docklands Stadium also is. It's called the Docklands Stadium back in 2000. Now it's called the Telstra Dome and now the Marvel Stadium. I will be going there for a BBL game sometime tomorrow, or rather sometime today. It's almost early morning right now here while I'm shooting this. And that's a little bit about what I saw at the Southern Cross station. After that, I was basically walking from the Southern Cross station, went into the lanes. Someone asked me to take a tram till this road called the Burke Street. In fact, the current hotel that you see me as part of, it's at the intersection of the Burke Street and Russell Street, and that's where the tram comes. The tram is free to use within the city. That's something very useful. And I boarded the tram, though I was in fact, while I was waiting for the tram, I was looking at how the weather had changed. The weather had all of a sudden become like Bangalore, 16, 17 degrees in winter. And because tomorrow or day after tomorrow for the Boxing Day test match, the weather is slated to be 40 degrees. And here we are at 16 degrees. So I thought, how is the weather going to change? But that's what Melbourne is about. I've always heard that you have 3 or 4 different types of weather in a single day in Melbourne. So boarded the tram, observed all of the big landmarks that were there as I was walking, and in the tram came to the stop, boarded a stop earlier. So I did a lot of walking, and again, as I said, a lot of crowd in those areas where parents and kids were, I think, gathering around some of the malls. Came here. By the time I came here, also one of my friends was also part of our long rope army, but also is a photographer for the New Zealand team when they travel to different places. He had come, his name is Raghavan, and Raghavan took me around to a couple of malls here. We walked, tried to understand what the buildings and structures are here. I'll be meeting him tomorrow and day after also, because Raghavan lives out of Melbourne and travels for photography assignments to India, to Olympics. I was to meet him earlier in the year during the Paris Olympics, but I think there was only one night that we could potentially meet, and I was a little too tired with all the flying in from Bombay for that trip in August. So met Raghavan, and he took me to the dome here, not dome exactly, but the upper deck. We had a nice conversation about how each of these places, what do each of these buildings mean. And I think as we were speaking, it started to rain, and that brought an end to a fairly tiring day. That was, spent across, I don't know, the concept of, it started on Saturday afternoon. All of a sudden, here we are on Monday morning. Saturday night has just vanished. We directly transitioned into Sunday from an Bengaluru sunset to a Sydney sunrise. So that was day one for me. A lot of interesting stuff to do. Couple of things that I maybe forgot to mention is I met a Sri Lankan fan on the domestic leg of the journey. While I was observing the beauty of how Sydney's coastline looked from the top, it was mind-blowing. The color of water, bluish green, and then so much of beach shoreline that is there. Loved watching it. The Sri Lankan fan called Linus, slightly, I think 60 plus person, he and his wife were flying with us, and they were coming to meet their daughters in Gold Coast and in Melbourne, and they were having like a Christmas party later this week. So it's a get together from Sri Lanka, and wow, I was enthralled speaking to him because he was speaking about today's under-19 game between India and Bangladesh women, speaking about the India-West Indies women's series, and of course we got talking about the Boxing Day test match and how good the test teams for India and Sri Lanka are, because I was scared that if India were to go play a test series in Sri Lanka, will we be able to stand up to Prabhat Jayasuriya, Ramesh Mendis and Dunit Velalage? That's just a fear that I have after India lost 0-3 in the ODIs sometime in July, August. But yes, those were some interesting incidents from the day, and that brings to end my experience today. Tomorrow I will take you through the place that I'm staying in. It's called the Space Hostel. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of staying in a closed hostel space? And also I will be going to the Docklands Stadium, the Marvel Stadium, for a game, and a lot of walks around the city. So I'll take you around the city a little bit more in detail tomorrow. For now, this is where the Day 0, Day 1 vlog ends. Please stay subscribed to this channel, and you can of course watch a lot of my updates also on the Long Rope Army media channel, which is on Twitter as well as Instagram. Do follow all of these accounts, and yes, look forward to some of your comments and your observations on my journey. This is a social travel era of social travel where As much as I travel, you folks are also traveling along with me. So looking forward to seeing some of your comments. And yeah, let's keep this social. And this is just day one of a long 2-week long tour. Looking forward to produce some interesting content on this tour around cricket. Thank you. Tada.